test this to see if our live stream audience can hear. Great. Wonderful.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today and attending this July meeting. And on behalf of the council, I call the meeting to order. And we're going to ask Dr. Vicki Silas to take roll call, please. Oops, she's getting settled in.
Good afternoon. If you are serving as a proxy for someone, please say your name when I call the proxy member's name. Captain Allwright,
Marcus Smith, proxy.
Christy Bennett, Maria Blanco,
Here.
Carmen Brabham, Bridget Bryant, Representative Carver, Dr. Molinier, Senator Edmonds, Amy Ewing, Jane Hamilton, Deputy Chief Heinen, Antoinette Horde, Ariel Hughes, Representative Hughes, Jody Joseph, Dr. Lucas, Tafta Miller, Amy Moran, Caroline Oglesby, Norma Palma, Jonathan Pierce, Dr. Polito, Jen Roberts, Dr. Libby Saunier, Kelly Taylor White, Shanda Terrio, David Thibodeau, Kari Wahid, Shannon White, and Amy Zapata. At this time, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to ask now for a motion to approve the minutes of May 8th. Is there a motion? Thanks, Jonathan. Second? Thank you, Michelle. Any discussion or corrections? Okay. Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the minutes have been approved. Lynn?
And really, this is the same exact slide, and I'm gonna pass it right back to you, Maria. This is the same exact slide that was at our last meeting in May, just really reminding the charge of this particular council as it relates to inputting guidance to Bessie and LDOE on matters related to the rules, regulations, bulletin, policies, standards of all of the programs listed. And so just wanting to continuing to bring us back to the charge before we get into our first item, which I'll pass back to you to introduce.
Yes. Thanks. So on the agenda today, we're receiving 2 reports from the department. And so I'd like to begin by getting a motion to receive the 2 reports. This is the quarterly report as well as a report that we're going to hear about the Louisiana Early Childhood Workforce Pilots. Thank you, Libby. Is there a second? Thank you, Ted. Any questions or comments? Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes, and I'm going to turn it over to Malin Baker, the Assistant Superintendent of Early Childhood Care and Education, and Karen Powell, the Deputy Assistant Superintendent of Early Childhood Education.
Thank you. So today we're going to be looking at the Q2 report. As you recall, for those of you who were with us in May, we did the annual report, a much deeper dive into some of the updates as well as the Q1. And so now we're looking at a snapshot in time of April 2024 to June 2024. For today's purposes, we're going to continue to keep it high level in terms of just some updates as it relates to program participation. In particular, today we're looking at 3 different programs and just reminding of this council as we look at the Child Care Assistance Program, remembering that is our voucher-based program as it relates to that particular, we'll give out some highlights in terms of participation. The CCAP Beta 3 program, which is our contracted seats program, as well as the Early Childhood Education Fund. And then we'll give some updates as it relates to community networks, Ready Start networks, and activities that were underway at the department, recognizing and supporting early childhood professionals. I'd say this is my second time, or maybe third, I'm not quite sure at this point, supporting the work of this council. And every time we approach these quarterly updates, it's always a matter of us figuring out there's so much information we could share. We want to also ensure that we're allowing for rich discussion to happen. And so today we're giving you a snapshot in time. If there are any questions, please feel free to let us know as we go through the next few slides. And so our first slide, very similar to in the past, gives you the Q2 update as it relates to those early learning sites by type. So as we look at this chart, we have early learning sites by type listed. And as we compare to Q1, Q2 shows us a slight decrease for type 1 and type 2 centers. And then for those type 3 centers in Q2, as compared to Q1, we're showing a slight increase, while our family child care sites are also seeing an increase as we look at and compare from the first quarter report that we provided at the last meeting. And then in-home remains the same. For star ratings for 2024, as you look there are the information as it relates to compared to 2023. And so noting that those 0-star sites include those that closed prior to the end of that academic year. And so again, this is giving you a snapshot in time. I'll pause for any questions as it relates to the specifics of kind of this chart for Q2. Yep, and thank you. Also reminding to utilize microphones. We do have those listening to that live stream.
Do you all have a breakdown of the FCCs versus academic approval versus registered?
Sorry about that. Yes, so we had, I believe it was 140 in academic approval in Q2. And then there are no registered at this time. This 241 to 247 range represents those who are certified for CCAP.
Of those, 140 have academic approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any other questions? Again, giving you a high-level overview. And the next slide, we're going to kind of zoom even more into CCAP voucher seats. And so in Q2, you can see as it relates to CCAP, specifically with that voucher program, participation ranged from 18,000, and I'm having to look at mine because I see the screen is blocking it, 18,253 children served in April of 2024 to June 2024 at 18,307. And so, as many of you know, in fall of last year, department began looking at those numbers, the funding, and the number of children served. And so acknowledging federal stimulus coming to an end and kind of some lack of surety as it relates to state funding is when the wait list was originally implemented. And since the wait list began in October of 2022, the number of children served has decreased with natural attrition, but also in terms of those cases that have been found eligible on that wait list. And so here you'll see a snapshot in time of all of those families certified since October of 2022, which is 1,970. And then those children certified for services, since that is 2,573. And so this was also mentioned at our last meeting in terms of the reasons families may not be certified. That includes several reasons. Some of them could be families not returning the correct documentation in order to verify income, forms in terms of them no longer needing care, or they did not return the requested verification within the timeline. As it relates to the current, approximately the wait list as of right now, we approximately 5,100 children on the wait list as it stands now, with 2,700 cases. And so acknowledging that we are continuing to, we're going to talk in this next slide a little bit about the CCAP B-3 contract program, contracted seats program, just acknowledging that's kind of the state of the state as it relates to the CCAP voucher program in terms of number of participation and those presently on the wait list. The next slide here has the information as it relates to the CCAP B-3 contracted seats program. As of May of 2024, 38 networks enrolled, and thank you, Karen, appreciate it, enrolled 5,300 children. The chart here breaks that down by age group. And so at our last meeting, we discussed this program is funded by state general funds. And so when we met in May, we had shared the guidance that we had provided to networks was essentially if funding was decreased, the program would downsize to some capacity. And so I do want to really emphasize how much we have a vested interest at the department in ensuring that those children that are already enrolled in this program are able to continue to participate in this program because we know, and we're coming fresh from having a commission meeting a few minutes ago, but really wanting to elevate how critical this is for the workforce and how we're really working to actively communicate with both networks and providers this information. And so included in your packet, as well as I'll voice over on the next few slides, is some of the communication that we provided as a week after session ended in terms of this program. And so you're welcome to, we included that information. It is behind the PowerPoint slides today, but just acknowledging that as a result of the end of last session, funding from the Louisiana legislature for State General Fund and CCAP was decreased, meaning the number of children enrolled for the 2024-2025 year will also decrease. Now, full impact of that decrease is going to be evaluated really closer to we get October based on our July, August, and September participation. And so the next few slides, I'm going to share with you what we have shared with networks in order to really kind of see where some natural decrease will occur before any other measures are taken. And so this letter is provided in your packets, but on June 7th, we sent this letter to both networks and providers, really just sharing immediate steps as it relates to the program. And so this communication pretty much, emphasized that our goal is continue those currently enrolled, but we asked for all redeterminations to be paused. And we also asked for a pause on any new enrollment into the contracted seats programs. We also had previously shared with networks that they could do some substitutions, if you will, of if it's the same age group, but we asked all pause on those substitutions. And then we also really encourage, as we think about this program is designed from birth to 3-year-olds and providing alternative guidance as it relates to 4-year-olds. And so ensuring that communication is being provided to those families as it relates to other publicly funded seat programs such as LA4, NSECD, ECCE Fund, Head Start, or others. And so ultimately, on June 12th, we approved the funding, Bessie approved the Q1 tuition payments for this program, and those were based upon the enrollment that was provided to us in April of 2024. And so for this first quarter, that has been approved, the payments as is, and we will be receiving later this month the updated information based off of this communication to help us determine exactly the nature of the downsize of this program. And so the Q1 payments to networks has been approved by Bessie. And so our plans of the department is going to be allocating, of course, we've already done the Q1. And then for Q2 payments, it's going to be based upon the evaluation of that Q1 enrollment. And that information will be sent to us by the networks later this month. And really, we're hoping that we see some natural attrition in terms of participation as well as transition from 3 to 4-year-old programs. And so really, ultimately, the plan for allocations for Q3 and 4, they're going to be based upon BESI deadlines as well as, of course, determining where we are with the natural attrition of this program. And so strong vested interest into seeing this program continue for those that are currently enrolled. We'll continue to have conversations on the future of this program as it relates to the feedback that this council and other groups have provided in terms of stakeholder feedback from networks, stakeholder feedback from providers. And so I welcome any questions. That the communication has been included in your materials, and we also did communicate this information out via a webinar with our networks as well. So I'll pause there for any questions before we transition to updates related to the ECE fund.
So, excuse me, providing alternate program guidance for 4-year-olds, should we be to publicly funded seat programs, but should we also be providing guidance to CCAP?
Sure. I would say definitely when it comes to the conversations, the challenge, as we acknowledge, there is a wait list with CCAP. And so I just want to acknowledge that component of the wait list. And so really it comes down to having those conversations at the network level, at the provider level, to see what is the best fit in terms of that transition.
Right. So I mean, it would be nice if the networks were doing that so that we can use that wait list to show when we do talk to legislators.
And so ideally in a scenario that should be occurring, you should have communication happening with your networks in that space.
Okay, I just didn't see it in the where it says provide alternate in the network letter.
Got it. Happy to further refine, but we are acknowledging the wait list that exists for CCAP voucher program.
And I can tell you what we do at our network. When we talk to parents, we do say, go to CCAP, go ahead and apply, because they need to know those numbers. You know, we let them know there's a wait list. We let them know, yes, it's a long shot, but we need to know what the actual numbers are for wait lists. So that is happening at some networks.
Has there been any consideration of siblings of currently enrolled students on the B3 program?
This is in terms of siblings. I think really, I guess my question is, are you talking about brand new siblings into the program? I think our guidance is really pausing all new enrollment in the CCAP B3 contracted seats program. I think siblings poses, I understand the uniqueness that is present, but ultimately we're trying to best assess. We want to ensure continuity of care for those currently in the program.
I think we are hoping that there is enough natural attrition.
Yes.
That, you know, not only maybe we will come down to the number that we need to come down to with the current level of funding, but perhaps there would open up some additional seats as well. So we are all hoping for that. And that's why I think it's so important for networks and stakeholders to be strategic about, we want to place children in whatever seats are available to accommodate them. So we want to all work together to make sure that all the funded seats are being utilized.
And have y'all heard yet from the feds about the 14 million that's supposed to come to the state and how that might play out?
We have not heard anything from the feds yet. I do think that preliminary discussions we've heard are that those would be quality dollars, so that's not allowable to use for seats, but we have not really been given any guidance or confirmation yet.
Karen, do we know what the magic number is? Or do we have a sense of what the magic number is?
Well,
I know nobody.
we know how many we were serving last year with the full 51 million addition. And so with the 9 million reduction, we're sort of trying to figure that out because, as you know, we have a very complicated formula that we're trying to work with because the infant, the toddler, and the 3-year-old rates are also substantially different. And so, you know, just a little movement within that infant category changes the available funding tremendously. But of course, we don't want to reduce infants being served either.
But if you if you do the estimated amount of 12.5, then it's about around-ish 800 potential seats that are lost.
Mhm.
Right? And then that just fluctuates based on the age of the children that are in the system. So that's kind of the magic number in a sense.
What's the sad number?
It is a sad number,
The
but it is.
magic number
No,
is
you're
that
right. You
87.7.
can estimate, like, you're spot on using the ish term, right?
So,
Which is, you said it.
so it looks like maybe with the kids who naturally through attrition would age out, we may not be touching the other seats.
That's been our estimation and why we're, asking for these attendance records and asking for the networks to tell us more data about the families so that we can continue to assess whether that first estimation is likely to prove true. But that is what we are hoping for. Well, we're very hopeful, so we hope for even more than that. We hope that some openings will become available as well, but as Malin stated, the most important thing to us, first and foremost, is continuity for the children currently being served.
So that, I know that's the case. So with the continuity of service, it makes it hard for the networks because they were in flux for so long because of the legislature. That's just the nature of the beast. But are there processes in place so local networks can plan, and so they're not floating like a month of funding prior? I mean, I'm looking at my community network, Ready Start networks, of how you're able to float money to make sure that you do have the continuity of care depending on what's happening with funding.
I think that's related to why we wanted to codify contracted seats and start moving them into where we can use federal dollars as well. It will still be, though, a complex dance because we have to estimate what happens if there's a further state cut. And we've insured these families 12 months of services. So we have to look at, how that then impacts the voucher program as well. But that's all modeling that we are working on trying to get in a better place this year so that we would like this to be the last year of this kind of flux and this kind of quarter to quarter movement. And we're really hopeful too that our new data systems will help with that. So our new family application, our new payment system, we're hoping those give us more tools.
But we will continue to keep you up to date as this information. So thank you for those questions. And I would say if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us as we continue. Our goal is to provide that communication as readily as we have. As soon as session ended, we provided that letter within a week of session ending. And we had multiple letters planned. And this is the letter that went out. We were hoping it was the So yes, we're going to go on now to talk about the Early Childhood Education Fund update. So in those of you who are new, several of you have been on this council for a while. You know that this particular fund was established by the legislature in 2017, and then funding sources were identified in 2019. And so really the intention of this is to incentivize that local investment in and fundraising for early childhood care and education by providing that dollar for dollar locally generated fund match. And so in 2023, 2024, 7 Ready Start networks were participating in the ECE fund. And those participating networks include Ascension Parish, Bossier Parish, Caddo Parish, Jefferson Parish, Orleans Parish, Point Coupee Parish, and Sabine. And at its peak enrollment in May of 2024, those participating networks had 2,166 children enrolled. And as you can see on this chart here, it provides the breakdown by age group. And on the next slide here, it indicates that LDOE accepted the applications for anticipated funding to be matched for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, and 13 networks raised qualifying funds. So if you compare to the previous slide, mentioning 7 now to 13, and these allocations were brought forward and approved at the June 2024 BESI for enrollment of these seats to begin on July 1st, 2024. And so increase in the funding request from 7 on. And so some of the examples that were shared in terms of ways funds were raised. This include regional community foundation chapters, local governments, United Way, individual donors, local businesses. And so definitely want to acknowledge the tremendous work that went into that matching program. And so we'll continue to provide updates as it relates to this. And we know we have some other networks that are in discussion with the department showing interest in raising funds for that 2025-2026 fiscal year. There are no other questions as it relates to some of these funded programs that we were discussing. I'll now transition to Karen Powell to provide updates as it relates to community networks and child assessment.
Thank you, Malin.
Sorry, real quick, related to the fund, I know there's been some difficulty for locals to draw down the funds. Have y'all been able to do any analysis about what is making it difficult for locals to draw down the funds from the ECE fund?
So Karen, please feel free. So I'm only chiming in because I'm learning this alongside the staff and supporting. I know in terms of kind of conversation as it relates to enrollment and how we can support providing clarification to networks specifically with enrollment, and then sharing that information as it relates to, we're having conversations behind the scenes with legal as it relates to those differences. But in terms of like drawdown challenges outside of enrollment, is that really the lens you're coming from with that question? Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that, Karen?
I think you've primarily hit upon it. I mean, I think one thing in New Orleans, though, there are people who could speak to it better, is that it was such a surge of scaling up. So I think there may be some systems in place projecting and anticipating that. We've also talked to the networks, as Mullen said, about maybe some misinterpretations about eligibility, conducting eligibility determinations, and so some ways to simplify that. We continue to talk to legal about whether there are further ways to simplify that, and we're continuing to review our internal policies to see whether we might want to further simplify that for networks and ourselves. We also have talked to not only for Orleans, obviously Orleans has the largest number of seats with the largest amount of local funding, but we've talked with legal about potentially setting up some data sharing agreements so that any families that are currently on the wait list from the parishes that have raised ECE fund dollars could be moved more quickly into those local spots because they've already been determined as eligible. So we're working on all of those improvements for the year ahead and to come. Okay, so some updates about child assessment activities in Q2. You know that there are the 3 TS Gold checkpoints throughout the year, and one of those checkpoints fell during Q2 on May 31st. So sites completed that final spring checkpoint in TS Gold. And TS Gold checkpoint data showed that 88% of networks met that spring checkpoint criteria. In terms of the accountability system, networks coordinated with program partners to complete observations in April through really May, of course, of 2024. And so that encompassed more than 3,000 class observations, observing more than 234,000 minutes of early childhood instruction. And that breaks down to 515 infant class observations, 1,041 toddler class observations, and 1,528 pre-K class observations. And those observations were conducted across more than 1,000, really more than 1,100 sites. Our Ready Start networks continue to be just pillars advancing all of the different kinds of work that is occurring related to workforce, related to local investment, related to access expansion. And so in Q2, Ready Start networks were encouraged to evaluate their networks coalition and their advisory council structures, because those are the units that make the collaborative decisions at the community level. And so we continually facilitate and advise Ready Start networks to consider their standing with each of those four pillars and think about, are there additional partners to bring to the table? Are there additional voices to include? In Q2, those networks worked to develop a funding strategy. That's a written plan that aligns with the network's blueprint. You know, their blueprint is the set of goals that they have for the network. And that funding plan helps identify the financial requirements of the network over time. And so that's an annual requirement that Ready Start networks provide each year. And the department provided the networks with a funding strategy planning guide that contributes to the identification of potential funding sources, supports the development of a schedule of tasks to assist in identifying and obtaining potential funding sources, and promotes a long-term action plan that adheres to the aims, timelines, and resource requirements of the network. So as we see success, you know, you've seen that the local communities raising funds increased from 3 to 4 to 7 to 14. So as we see those local successes, we share information about those strategies that have been employed with all the networks so that they can determine whether some of those strategies might also work in their own communities. In terms of recognizing our early childhood professionals, we recognized site leaders and teachers for their hard work and dedication to the field of early care and education. So we had finalists from our Early Childhood Teacher and Leader of the Year Award speak on a panel at Teacher Leader Summit, sharing their experiences, wisdom, and best practices in the early childhood care and education profession. We are very excited. You will hear in the next quarterly report who the new winners will be. We have that gala coming up at the end of this month where the winners will be announced. And we're hoping to share more information about those finalists and winners with you through social media throughout the year, and really have them highlighted at our conferences and other places to continue to share their enthusiasm, their passion, their dedication, their best practices, their favorite activities with other professionals. We also accepted an application for cohort 6 of the Louisiana Early Leaders Academy, or LELA, which provides childcare site leaders with leadership development, systems thinking training, and collaboration with peers to strengthen their business practices. So we look forward to that next cohort beginning. And I know that we have some alumni in the room. And then we continue our work with SWALAHEC, or the Southwest Louisiana Area Health Education Center, on the Healthy Navigators for Louisiana program to connect more early childhood professionals with no or low cost healthcare options that are currently available to them. So in Q2, SWALAHEC continued those efforts with information for directors on offering benefits packages or connecting employees with health insurance options. And that has been a partnership that we are really excited about. We plan to continue supporting. They have been reaching just hundreds of meetings with directors and their teams, visiting hundreds of childcare sites and making dozens of presentations. So we look forward to continuing that partnership. And I think those are my updates.
Any questions before we transition to our next item? All right, so our next item really is a direct result of some of the questions that were had at our last council meeting, and definitely wanted to try something different in terms of a panel discussion that you'll be able to participate in as well. But before I introduce those that are going to be participating on the panel, I wanted to just provide a little bit of context of some work that's been underway, definitely precedes my time at the department, as well as there are many people around this table and in this room that have been actively a part of all of this work for some time. But I did want to first just talk about, we're going to zoom in on one aspect of workforce initiatives. There are lots that don't live on this page that are outside of our agency and outside of this room. And so I'm just going to voice over some of the LDOE recent workforce initiatives to kind of frame the panel that will be speaking in a few moments. And so really, the question I think that was specifically asked at the last meeting was interest in one particular component of this, which is in the lens of high school, and that's what we're going to be zooming in on during the panel. But I did want to acknowledge that all of this lives within the preschool development grant, birth through 5 planning grant that the department received previously. And so a few particular workforce efforts that were in that previous grant was the workforce planning grant. And so that was, the LDOE was partnering with 5 Ready Start networks to conduct an analysis of early childhood workforce needs and developing a strategic plan as it relates to workforce needs at the local level. And so this specifically addressed development, recruitment, retention. And so those participating Ready Start networks included Rapides, St. Charles, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, and Washington. And then 2 particular groups that the department convened was the Workforce Stabilization Study group, and that was composed of some early childhood experts who work in directly or indirectly supporting the early childhood field. And so this group has been looking at the workforce needs related to factors of reviewing and analyzing that national and local data. And so this group has been making recommendations that are being shared with the impact team, which is that next slide. And that's composed of several stakeholders who work at both local and state agencies. And really, they were charged to look at the field-based perspectives, those promising practices and recommendations of that planning of the study group. And so this team is using information that will help inform policy and any future changes. So more to come in terms of those updates. But really what we wanted to zoom in on today was some of the work underway as it relates to the high school ECCE program. And so today we will have both Washington and Tangipahoa who have been developing the ECCE programs as a pipeline on the workforce development for high school students. And so we are continuing, the department is working with these networks, talking about outcomes, challenges, and I think today some of the discussion will help you kind of learn along the way with us. And so for those of you, so many of you in this room know the pathways that it takes for early childhood certification, but just wanted to kind of acknowledge those pathways to obtain an early childhood ancillary certificate. And so acknowledging you've got your child development associate credential obtained by attending a BESI approved ECCE program, associate's degree in early childhood education or related field, as well as a bachelor degree in any field. And so with that, we love to use terms in education. We love acronyms, we love terms, and I do think it's important that we always frame those terms sometimes. So if there are any other terms that are used in this particular panel or discussion, please feel free to ask. But one of the terms that may be used from time to time is something as it relates to dual enrollment. And so anchoring us into acknowledging that that is a student that is enrolled in both high school and college at the same time, receiving that credit on their high school transcript. This can happen at local community colleges, technical colleges, four-year institutions as well. And so these pilot programs are underway in certain districts, really targeting those juniors and seniors that are interested in early childhood education. And so we're going to have a brief pause. If you need to take a sip of your water, we're going to transition. We're going to go into panel mode, and I'm going to invite our 4 panel members up to come sit up here while we transition to the side, because really we want this to be an opportunity for you to ask them questions, to talk with them. So I'm going to also move as well. And I'm going to come sit next to you, David, if that's okay with you. And if you could bring your name tags, that would also be lovely. All right. So we have 4, oh, that feedback. Okay. Maybe doing a switch of mics in a second. So for my panel members, I'm going to just ask you to introduce yourself. And if you could also share mics, and hopefully it doesn't give you feedback, your name, your title, and the organization you represent.
I'm Carmen Brabham. I'm from Tangipahoa Parish School System, and we are a Ready Start Network. I am the Early Childhood Coordinator, so I serve the district as well as coordinate things for our Ready Start program.
I'm Michelle DeMolinier, and I'm with the Board of Regents. I've been working with the Early Childhood Ancillary Certificate since its inception, and am working with the dual enrollment pathway to develop that out with our 2 and 4 year institutions.
Hi, I'm Christy Bennett, and I am with the Washington, and we're also a Ready Start Network, and I'm the coordinator. I also do a lot of work with the EC Guide and supporting the families, but a lot of with birth to 4. So, and supporting them and doing the work, all the Ready Start work also.
And hi, my name is Erland Drazina, and I represent North Shore Technical Community College as a Director of Early Childhood Education.
Thank you, and thank you. Oh, no, okay, all right, maybe the mic change didn't do it.
Well, as everybody knows, we have a teacher shortage everywhere, not only in early childhood, early learning centers, but in public schools as well. So we have a definite interest in creating a pipeline to get people interested in education so we can groom them and they not go to four-year university and say, oh, I think I'm going to be a teacher now, and change over to general studies and then graduate and go the alternate cert path. We want them to come up with an early education background. Nothing against people who do that. I have several friends that graduated in general studies and are now excellent educators. But it would be more beneficial if they came with an early childhood or an education background so that they're better prepared for that. So, and we also have a advanced college and career center that we're offering different trades for our high school students already. So it just made sense to add an early education pathway as well. So that's what we're working on now, and we're excited to get started with it.
So we also had a lot of the same interest about, trying to get to see with the workforce issues out there and, just basically too, that it lets them leave with something in hand ready to work. And a lot of them may need to fall back on that at some point. So it was a lot of the same. We do not have a career, center in our parish, but we do rely a lot on like North Shore and we, where they can get some other types of degrees through that. So we wanted to extend to be able to let them have get a CDA.
Great, so I'm hearing some, no, no.
Well, since we already have the Advanced College and Career Center, it was really easy for us because we send out surveys. What are you interested in? So we just added early childhood education to that survey. And as of today, we had 28 interested juniors and seniors in high school. So we're really excited to have that many. Now we need to sit down with them and explain exactly what this means and exactly what you're going to be required to do and hope that most of them continue with that, but it was just an easy thing to add to our surveys that we already put out there.
So with ours, we did do some interest surveys and we have also used social media to try to promote and get, students interested in doing so. And then, we relied on our high schools to buy in, to put some of the teachers, like the JAG program, we had him speak and tell the students that we were offering that and, to get them interested in it. But we've also, I'm not real sure like what exactly our numbers are going to be yet, but we have, sent that out through our counselors and so that they can see, what kind of interests we have for the coming up school year.
I'd like to add one thing is, are all these students all are participating in their clock hours for the ECCE at local early childhood programs. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. The benefits are they can start a program earlier to determine if they are interested in education as a career. If they take this program, they're able to work in an early childhood center. They can make some money along the way. They may decide they're interested in attending college or a technical college. And if so, they could work part-time in a center while they're attending college. And then we keep our educational pipeline stable. They can continue from high school through an associate's program to a four-year degree program if that's what they choose to do. So there's more options and more choices for our young people.
That's a ditto there. That's exactly what we do.
So this is a question for all of you. Can you tell us about
Challenge is where I live. Yeah, it's a really big challenge. Number one, how are you going to facilitate it? Who are you going to partner with? How are you going to get the kids? I was lucky in that we have our career center, but now our challenge is to find those centers that can partner. Do we have a center that's near where these kids live and can provide transportation to? A teacher, and all of these programs are designed differently. Chrissy will tell you about her certain design last year, but what we're trying to do is put a teacher to facilitate these classes at our college and career center. Well, the challenge there is finding a qualified teacher for us to have to offer those classes. So we're crossing our fingers that hopefully we have one now, because I get chest pains because school is almost a month away. And that's when we have to have all these things in place, but that's okay. We'll get it done. But that's a big challenge, finding someone who is an instructor who can facilitate these kids. And a lot of people in early childhood, guess who they dealt with when they were, I had somebody that retired, but guess who she dealt with when she was in the public school system? Early childhood children. She wasn't really teaching high school juniors and seniors. So a lot of people with the early childhood qualifications didn't necessarily teach juniors and seniors. And I don't know if you've met or talked to any juniors and seniors in high school, but that's a whole different animal. So, said, wait a minute, I'm gonna have to talk to who? I said, juniors and seniors. Okay, give me some 4-year-olds and I'm good. So we're looking for that perfect match there that hopefully we can get, but that's a huge challenge for us.
And yes, that was also with me, because being in that parish, for 25 years, and I spent 18 of my 22 teaching experience in kindergarten. So when I was in high school, I'd go in there and they would look at me and say, "What are you doing in here?" And I'm like, "I'm coming to see the CDA students." So I can definitely, but I just figured, like with anything else, you have to teach them just like you have to anyone else. So, but with Miss Arlindra, we met with her a lot. She's been wonderful. We would get on many Zooms at the beginning and along the way to come up with a plan about exactly how we were going to do it. And so we ran, we did one course in the summer, and they would get to go to the campus, which, was wonderful. But then we would have to come once school start, and they would have to be bused there. So we redid it, and unfortunately, we were not on the same bell schedule, so we went with our largest high school, and so which would also be the school that is closest to the most early learning centers in that area. So it was, so we did that and we decided that we would do more like a hybrid because, she would go and see them in the centers or see them, sometimes in the classroom, but you'd Zoom in a couple of days a week. And then we came, the teacher, the facilitator in the room. We were like, well, what is she going to do the other day? So we had to like come up with a plan of what she could do on the days that they were not being Zoomed in. And so then we came across the areas of, okay, now we need to get them in a center. How is that going to look? What are we going to do? So, then, it came across that a lot of our students did not have a birth certificate to even be able to go get a state ID, to be able to get a criminal background check. So we had to, it was a good little, by the middle, second semester, we were rolling. It was going well.
Right.
So a lot of times I think about even when I was a teacher in the classroom, by the time it got to be second semester, May, you were like, oh yeah, this is so good. You forget about that beginning of the school year. So then now you'd have to start kind of over again with that. But the main thing that I feel that would be is just to really like think about everything and just really get a good plan in place that you feel that would work best. Because like we said, every district's going to be different. And but I am real excited to see about how it is in Tangipahoa with them being able to have that career center. And so, but like Ms. Zenon, she's been absolutely wonderful. And, we talk to her all the time. So, but, I feel like, just some of the hurdles, and just making sure those relationships, are there, and that the parents too have a clear understanding about like what is going to be, what's going to happen if they're not if there is trouble in, at the center, how are you going to handle that? What's going to happen? Because too, I mean, they get to have some real world experience with a job and, how to manage that.
So I'll just add a little bit to that. There were a lot of challenges. However, we overcome all of them. So we end up with some wonderful students that now are in the summer that are getting ready to complete and, get their CDAs. So that is a great thing, right? So one of the things that I'll say, we dealt with bail schedules. I think with all the different parishes, they all were on different bail schedules, and that was very challenging for us to be able to, service the entire Washington Parish area. We ended up only servicing that one particular school. And I'm from Washington Parish, so they didn't pick my school. So I kind of felt some type of way, but anyway, other than that, that was probably like the biggest thing for us, and getting them out into the child care centers where they're getting this one-on-one experiences with these teachers and also these children. I just had to work with their schedules, because we got dance, cheer, soccer, tennis, we got everything going on, right? So they would just send me their schedule and say, hey, I can do Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 3 to 5. And I just had to accept that, where my normal students in college, they know they had to be there from 8 to 2. They knew that. But with them, we had to alternate their schedules as much as we can.
I'm gonna add one more thing when you were talking about that, about having to just be accommodating too, when it came down to having a class observation. We had to, work with the best that we can, because typically you'd want to observe in the morning, but they're in school in the morning. So we just had to work around that so that they can get the requirement that they needed.
I want to say that these ladies have been wonderful to work with. We had one additional parish, Iberville Parish, that was also involved in piloting. They had 11 graduates that finished up in the spring. I was really excited. And all 11 of them are working in an early childhood center in Iberville Parish and are going to continue on with school and continue working in a center. So I was really excited about that. And these ladies don't know it, but this particular pilot has brought national attention to Louisiana as an early childhood pipeline. So I'm really excited that we did make national recognition for 3 rural parishes and the success that we had in piloting this in a one-year program. It took, what, 4 or 5 years to get it off the ground, and lots of research, lots of planning, a lot of course approval, a lot of agreements with colleges, institutions, and center directors to allow these students to go in and work in the centers.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, first of all, to think about what type of program you would like. What are your resources that are already available to you? See about your college and career pathways already. Tap into your high school counselors. What is the interest there? Because the first thing you want to do is, this is all really exciting, but if you don't have any children, I say children because I work with these, but if you don't have any students interested, then you don't need all this big program for no one to get in it. So you have to get some excitement built up within your district to say, hey, this is a pathway. Come see what this is all about. So the first thing to do is see who you can get interested in your program. What resources do you have? What relationships can you tap on or tap into to see how can we get this off the ground? Find your instructors, or what type of program are you going to offer? Who can you partner with at the higher institution to come in and assist you with your development? Because they need to be on the development phase of it too. So, definitely, like you said, the support, with your system and them, having buy-in also to be, wanting to do it and then encourage the students to do so. And, I had thought about one thing too, because we did actually 3 different model, because we had in-person, kind of a hybrid, and then an asynchronous. So to me too, like, I just feel like that it was really going to get that group of students ready for, a type of college experience if that's what they chose to do. And because I can remember when we first started, like in the hybrid, you could tell that they were they were unsure. And like, I'd even go in there some and have to talk, and we would have to talk to them about it. And so as far as like resource too, I really think that it would be good if they could have like a little lab like you had at North Shore, where they would have resources that they could use when they're doing the coursework, or even, to have if they wanted to use it for a lesson when they're in the classroom. But just really having that good support and that, or like we say, relationship, and, that plan to me is what, but you're going to have to readjust that plan and be flexible with that plan, but just having a real good plan in place.
And I think you also need to look into the community to find those exemplar centers and those mentor teachers that could model appropriate classrooms for those high school students. This is their first experience in a classroom, so you really need to have the right type of person with those students. I would say that all the students that have been enrolled thus far have had a very positive experience, thanks to, Divine.
And if by any means that did not happen, we were able to move them because, in our transition, we had to move some students due to different reasons. So we will be open to do that as well. So I know for me, in my classroom, we have, our school purchased the Falk Street. So we had infant, toddler, pre-K 3 in our classroom.
So having that there, and then I also have a model classroom that looks like a childcare center there. So having it there, the students were able to go in there. We had, you know, the right books, the right materials, you know, lesson plans. They were able to do all of that. We have the Macs and like all of them in the classroom. So before they go into the childcare center, they were able to see all of these things as resources that they're using in the childcare centers. So that was one of the big resources for us.
Our College and Career Center is a big one for us. We also have purchased classroom model materials, a rug, a Frog Street, our curriculum for that. People are your resource because you can't do it all by yourself. You have to have buy-in from your superintendent. You have to have buy-in from your CTE person at your district because you have to have all of those pieces together. So those are huge resources, are your people that are involved.
And let me add, also, we have, Washington Parish also purchased the CDA books from the CDA Council. So they purchased all 3 books for them. If they were infant and toddler, they did the yellow book. They were pre-K, they did the green book. So all of those resources, I was able to connect when I would give them assignments. We would refer back to that resource. So that was great too.
And too, whenever she mentioned the CTE person, and I cannot go without, you know, saying about her because she was a key person for us, and she did go over and beyond what she had to do in her role as, you know, with the whole program because, you know, like we'd always say, she would sit down, she said, I don't know early childhood, and I would say, I don't know about high school. So we would always work together, but she was phenomenal. So I just have, you know, Suzette Nielsen, I just have to, if it wasn't for her, I don't know what we would have done, but she was fantastic because, you know, to my knowledge, the only thing she stops when she enters them in at North Shore, but she definitely went over and beyond with us. So we were thankful for her as a resource.
And I just want to add that with Washington Parish, by my school being in the parish, I had MOUs with all of the childcare centers already. So we already had a partnership, so it was easy for me to get the students in. We didn't have to really do much because my students go to school there already. So that was great too.
And that would probably like piggyback too out for that relationship because I know when I'm in some of the childcare centers, I'll see her sometimes, and so they already know her. So they were comfortable because that's a lot of when you first go into an early learning center, they have to kind of get to know you and get that feel for you. Because I know when I first started the job, I had to build a relationship with them before they would feel comfortable with me coming in. So that was definitely help, you know, just getting it started like that.
Yes, we had MOUs with the center and the center director, the mentor teacher, the college or career center, the district and the institution, and the district and the child care center. So there were a lot of MOUs going around, but they all kind of came together at the end to say, okay, this is what we want to do. And it was the Early Childhood Ancillary Certificate Program that actually was in existence for those that weren't in high school that made this high school pipeline really strong.
One, the qualifications to be a teacher.
I've got you. Okay, so that's my challenge right now that I'm working on. And so we were talking before, they have to have an early childhood background. So what we have to do is get an instructor, get her transcripts and send them to North Shore so that they can vet and see if this person qualifies for, or not. She said she gives them to, do you want to, I'm taking your words.
No,
from
it's
you.
fine.
Okay. They give it to their Human Resources Department. They go through the person's transcripts to see. Typically, I mean, they've got to be an instructor. So, I mean, a certified teacher with an early childhood background. So, I mean, I had a person, she used to have my job before me. I said, she's perfect. I thought I had her, but I lost her. But she has a master's degree in education, and she worked in early childhood. So that's the optimal person. But they have to be a certified teacher. I don't know if they have to have a master's degree or not. I don't know if they have to have a master's degree or not. That's the stage I'm in right now, to try to see if I can get
It's
this
going to
person.
depend on which early childhood ancillary certificate provider that you use. If you're going through a 2-year or 4-year institution, they have their specific institutional requirements for their employees. Some of our private partnerships for ECCCE don't have those requirements, but they do have the state requirements that they must meet in order to run a program.
So to answer your question, no, you do not have to have a master's degree, because we have a teacher that teaches with us now that she doesn't have a master's degree.
But do you have to have, be a certified teacher if you have all the background? So because you're saying.
It depends on the institution.
That's my
Yeah,
question.
so if you are at North Shore has a requirement for all of their teachers that will be teaching dual enrollment and/or their at their 2-year institution. So they have their requirements. So they would have to meet their requirement. If you're going through a program such as Frog Street, you would have to meet the Department of Education's requirement.
Like for us, we're trying to use our own personnel, so they have to be certified teachers.
And let's talk about why that's so important, is because if we're talking about transferable things, right? So in order to transfer from the CDA program to the associate's program, then to a bachelor's degree program, you have to have people that have the right credentials in order for that to happen. Because if not, it's a waste of time. Yeah, correct.
And our ultimate goal is to set them on the pathway to be a certified teacher. So then they had options, whether they wanted to stay in an early learning center, become an early learning center director owner, or go into the public school setting. And we're just trying to build a pipeline for teachers.
And I don't know if I had mentioned it too, but ours will receive the dual enrollment credit. That's the reason why we went through North Shore. And that's why the CTE person was involved, so that they could be in and get that dual enrollment credit.
I have another question, because I know y'all have worked on this for years before you got to this point. And so you have to this point, what you've talked about is you've learned so much. So have y'all put a guide, a process document together? So if another community technical college wants to pick this up, they've got the pieces and parcels to make it successful for whatever community that you're in?
That's a wonderful idea, Libby.
I was about to say, we're in progress.
Yeah, I think we're still in progress with this being the end of our first year of a pilot. But we have learned so many lessons that I think that is a good.
Y'all been so wildly successful. And so like people,
Correct.
So this is really, really cool. Thank you. But just a couple questions. You mentioned in Tangipahoa, you had 11 that are working. Washington, you had 11 that are working?
Finished up this 6.
With 6, yeah.
Okay.
You said another parish.
We had 11 in Iberville.
Oh, Iberville. Okay. So that's really amazing. Was it in the same setting?
They were asynchronous settings, so they were all on the same bell schedule, so it was different high schools. No, no, no. They're working in multiple, different centers. Yes, yes, uh-huh. As of, last week they were all there, so I don't know when school starts, what'll happen, but we'll see.
So what are the next steps for this to branch out
Okay.
across the state?
The next steps are we're continuing our dual enrollment pathways and pushing the early childhood as being a pathway for dual enrollment. By doing so and having it approved as an IBC credential, we'll be able to draw MFP funding to support some of these teachers and support the students with tuition so that we can expand statewide. Again, you have to have a relationship with your early childhood ancillary certificate provider because these students are not drawing pathways funding. So this would be in addition to whatever they would be teaching for their, the current centers, the current type 3 centers. So these are high school students. So they would have to be willing to adjust their programs for high school students. There is a CDA pathway for high school students. So there's a different book, different, which is very similar to the one that they have right now. But so they would have to look at that and be familiar with that to be able to teach that. We are at the finish line. Yeah, so we're getting very, very close. The apprenticeship model was approved thanks to all of the letters from the early childhood providers. I did have a brochure that I was handing out that you can become registered through the apprenticeship through the LSU Early Childhood Institute as a center. And if you're an ECCE program, you can also become registered that way. Once you're registered, you get a certificate, and that certificate would go to your local workforce, and you could draw down WIOA dollars to be able to fund your early childhood. So that could help those that have worked less than 1 year. It could help your high school students. It could help those moving from a type 2 to a type 3 center that haven't been working long enough. So we're really hoping that this makes a difference. As far as the IBC credential, workforce just had a reorganization. The IBC credential is slated for the committee, and right now we don't see any problems with that going through. Credential? Sorry. We relied on the district, so I will turn it over to them.
Well, usually, with the mentor teacher, like the center director would usually place them in to me, with the teacher that they felt that would have high quality going on in the classroom at all aspects of it. So, the director, because is that how you feel, that the center director usually did the placing? And, so that's how, we just relied a lot on them to do it. And I think too, with the relationship you had, that's probably how they place your students too. So, they kind of know, just, I guess, probably just like a school, if you were going to place a teacher with somebody that was going to let them do their student teaching, so. I'm sure they probably look at like to class scores and, stuff like that.
And that's what we're going to do. We are going to require our centers to be at least proficient, but we're pushing for high proficient. And then look at those individual teachers within that center and recommend them. But ultimately, the director would help us place them. But I'm going to give the guidance as far as we're looking for people that are scoring within these ranges, because we want these students to have the best examples of what we expect early childhood to be and that highest quality.
Yeah, we have two folks who'd like to make some public comment. I'm just going to remind you to please state your name. You can come up to a mic, state your name, the agency or organization you represent, and that you have 3 minutes. And first we have Rochelle Wilcox.
I'm sorry, y'all. Rochelle Wilcox, Wilcox Academy. My question is, are the student teachers counted in the ratio?
That's a good question. Yes and no. They can't be left alone, but yes, you can include them in the ratio if they meet the age. So you have to follow licensing guidelines. You have to follow minimum licensing guidelines. So if they're, so you have to follow licensing guidelines. So if you have a 17-year-old in a classroom, oh, no. Yeah. It varies.
Ours was a year.
Yeah,
1
theirs
year.
was a year. Theirs started in a summer and ended in a summer. Yours will be what?
We're trying to do a year. We're trying to get maybe 2 classes this fall and 1 in the spring. So it just depends on what we can get off the ground with the personnel that we have to do it.
And Iberville's was a year.
They go simultaneous together. We can do them together.
Thank you. And Joshua Mesh?
Not yet, but I mean, we're flexible because they've done this for 1 year. This is my first year. So we're looking to see, but if we can get them, the earlier we can get them and they don't have to do as many courses on the way, would obviously be better. So we're not opposed to a 2-year term, but we're trying to do it in the 1 year.
We did have a program that was a 2-year program in Rapides Parish. And what they found with their pilot was they lost the students from the first year to the second year. So that's why with this particular pilot, we tried to do it just a 1 year.
If we do in 2 years, we can. Because we take these courses, guys, and it's like 5 courses that I give them when they come to North Shore. So with the dual enrollment, so when they come
If they decide to come back and get their associate's degree, I mark off 5 classes for them.
Good question. I think it's a basic.
Okay, can I say one more thing? Okay. So this year, we had a student from, North Shore. She was a Washington Parish student, high school student that went to Skills USA. So Skills USA is a competition that is competed with all different areas. I mean, early childhood, carpentry, nursing, all of these different areas. So, she had the opportunity to compete with the high school, you know, with North Shore, but dual enrollment high school student. So that was super exciting. That's the first year I've ever had a high school student. So she did place. So we were super excited about that. So that's opportunities that they can get, you know, being, you know, dual enrolled. Yeah.
Can I put something on record? We need a student of the year. You got teacher of the year, leader of the year. We need a student of the year.
Full enrollment? Oh. Oh.
Emerging teacher, new teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, there is, okay, food for thought. Okay, what these great ideas. All right, I think we do need a motion for these 2 informational points, so I will sit back to our chair.
Can I get a motion to endorse these 2 reports? Thank you, Libby. Is there a second? Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions or comments? Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes. Thanks, everybody. That was really wonderful. Our next meeting is going to be, I'm sorry. I totally missed that.
So these are more of just, I'm just squeezing something in right at the final hour. No, that's on me, but thank y'all so much for those joining, participating in that discussion and conversation. I really just wanted to highlight for you, very high level, actually at the first council meeting that I was able to support at the February 2024, the council meeting brought forth revisions to Bulletin 137. And this was related to the Department of Health concluding the Child Care Health Consultants Program. And so we're providing a very brief update with more information to come to you at our next meeting. I think, Maria, you were just about to say September. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. But really, the policy revisions that this council reviewed outlined and ensured that individuals who have that knowledge and credentials necessary to provide the training on topics of health and safety, as well as medical administration, medication administration. And so right now, the department is in the process of gaining all of the contact information as well as the appropriate healthcare licensure information for all of those will be soon to approved registry of approved trainers. And this is going to be with the goal of providing to providers who seek training to have accessibility to those qualified trainers with knowledge and credentials. So more information to come as it relates to this work, but I wanted to just provide an update for this council that it is underway and communication is moving forward in terms of next steps with those that were formerly child care health consultants. So if no questions related to that, I will transition to Karen. We're gonna squeeze in just a few more updates. We do have the time, but we were last also in February talking about the CCDF state plan. So I will transition back to Karen, who will provide a high level update related to that work.
Thank you, Malin. So just as a reminder kind of our timeline and next steps, in May and June, we received stakeholder feedback and reviewed all of that feedback carefully. In June, we submitted the CCDF state plan to the federal level for review. July through September, the Administration for Children and Families Office of Child Care will provide us feedback on the proposed state plan. And the 2025-2027 state plan, CCDF state plan, will become effective on October 1. And then we absolutely anticipate, probably every state anticipates more than ever before in the next 3 years to be submitting amendments to our state plans because of the final rule implementation. So the Office of Early Childhood Care and Education reviewed all stakeholder feedback that included approximately 56 comments by approximately 20 speakers at the public hearing, 27 written comments received via the public comment portal, and written comments submitted via advocacy groups. And some tweaks we made in the final submission of the state plan, which is available on the website, is that we did include presumptive eligibility for redeterminations of a 30-day period to try to ensure that those families aren't dropped off and there's a smoother transition during that redetermination process. Continuing the workforce stabilization study group, knowing how important it is to continue to look at workforce strategies. What we expect to be part of probably our very first amendment is prospective payments. We would have put that in if we could guarantee that our new system would be in place by October 1. But as soon as our new system is in place that allows us to make the prospective payments, that will be taking place for CCAP. We also continue to look at eligibility items of collection, and as I mentioned earlier, ways we might further simplify that. And then there are a number of things that we are, considering and working on this year and moving forward. So we continue to think about and look at network level engagement and B2 3 seats eligibility determination, more and more effective workforce data collection, for example, digitally. Development of trainings and other professional development support regarding inclusive classrooms and stronger support for young children with disabilities, development of more director-focused trainings, increasing developmental screenings, expansion of the early childhood guides with more funding, studying the number of early childhood professionals with children under age 5, and what the cost of waiving family co-payments might be to see whether it would be cost feasible. So those are just some of the feedback that we received on things that we were already working on or things that we are now working on.
Is there a way that this advisory council can get a copy of what was submitted to the feds?
It's on the website, and
Okay.
we can send you that link.
Yeah, just,
We can follow up those after this via email, but it is also live on our website.
hard to navigate the website.
If you didn't already know, the Louisiana Department of Education is updating its website. So we look forward to that happening in the next couple of months. And
Yes, until then, we will email it.
Thank
yes,
you. I mean,
But-
we hunt and peck for things daily, so.
hope for the future.
But also, I just want to commend the department for the outreach for feedback on the CCDF plan. I've heard from several providers throughout the state, like this was the first time that they really felt engaged in this process in a meaningful way. And I think that's a testament to the leadership of the department and of the office. So I speak for not only the Policy Institute, but many partners that we work with throughout the state that say thank you.
And then, finally getting to that last slide, you can see here when our next meetings are scheduled for 2024. We have a meeting September 18th as well as November 20th. Both of those meetings are scheduled for 1 to 3 p.m. in this room. Let's all put good technology vibes into the universe before that time. We have sent out Outlook calendar invitations to all 2024-2026 council members for those 2 meetings. And then we're soon going to work to establish our 2025 meeting dates, and then we'll send out those dates accordingly as well.
Another quick question. I know that there's a PDG application out in the ethos, and that the department's planning to apply for that. When is the deadline for that grant to be submitted to the feds?
The end of July.
Okay. So how are you going to elicit the partner contributions to be able to look at that?
I would say that the application is being built based on feedback from council meetings, from the state plan, from all the ongoing stakeholder engagement that we do. The turnaround time between notice of funding opportunity and its due date is very short.
Is there a way that it could be shared that with the understanding that there would need to be quick turnaround if people wanted to give feedback for input? So I guess I would ask in the future with a tight deadline like this, if there's a way when strategically advisory councils are happening, if there could be a brief update in these types of meetings so that council could weigh in when possible.
I think there's something to be said for, as we kind of map out, Karen alluded to, we're mapping out our 2025. I think any of these type of opportunities, like grants of this nature and things of that, we can kind of build that into our timeline and sequencing. Just knowing that for Karen, and I love this acronym, the NOFO, that was released, the window was a little bit short for us to be able to anticipate, but I do think as we plan for 2025, especially as we know about additional grants, we can kind of build those touch points into those scheduling time. But simply due to our the volume and length of this application, we're not going to be able to turn it around for broad feedback. But I would say the door is always open. Please, if there are certain points, the notice of intent is publicly available for view. And if there are certain areas that you have feedback on, please feel free to, you can directly reach out to me, earlychildhood@la.gov, whichever one works best.
I think we all appreciate that. And I think, I think that like for our organization, we're attuned to these things coming out, but that might not be the same for all of our advisory council members. So they wouldn't know to be attuned to ask to look for. And so just, in the future, understanding like time constraints right now are out of people's hands.
Okay, everybody, now we can be ready to go. And so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Libby. And a second? Thank you, Michelle. Any objections? Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all so much for the rich conversation and feedback, and travel safely. And see you in September, if not before.